Good evening. It's intermission time, and during the next 10 minutes, we invite you to visit our refreshment stand located in the center of the drive-in.
What's that smell?
I don't know. Why am I tied up?
I don't know. That clown did it. Are you okay?
No.
What shit? Oh no.
There he is.
No, we should stop, Mary. Please stop. Mary, stop. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? No, please. No.
Harry is fucked up. Hello?
Create art. Abolish injustice. A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Thank you, Jennifer, for being
Yo. What's up, Ben? Thanks, bro. Last time I did that, I touched one of the stripper's tits. And I got kicked out. Alright, that's fine, bro. Nope. Not since September. How come? Should tell her I'm dead. Alright, whatever. Bitch.
Oh, that's fucking good. Oh, wow. Damn, that shit really gets you fucking going. Damn, those are some fucking good drugs.
Before anything, a little backstory. I was 10 at the time and was visiting my hometown, Ecuador, for the summer. At the time I knew just about everyone in my small little town, Alausi, and so did my parents, which is why they let me go on my own that day. Anyways, here's my encounter. Back when I was 10 years old, my family decided to take a visit to my hometown of Ecuador. We went for the summer and planned out just about our whole stay. One day, my mom and dad were getting ready to go to a wedding and I was in the house with them. My big sister went over to a friend's house and my other relatives had already left for the wedding. I was supposed to stay at home alone for the duration, but I saw that it was a beautiful day out and decided to ask my mom and dad to go to a park that was no more than 2 blocks away. They were reluctant at first, stating that there would be nobody to take care of me, but I argued that it was a beautiful day out and there is no way that the park would be empty. They kept getting dressed as I kept on arguing until they finally gave in. They said that I can go to the park as long as I was back before dark. I agreed and ran outside to head for the park. It took me no more than 10 minutes to get there and I was ready to make new friends and play around. But, oddly enough, there was nobody else in the park. It looked abandoned, which was weird, seeing how this was one of 2 parks in the whole city. It should have been packed, but I paid no mind to it. I believe I ran over to a swing set or slide. It was 12 years ago, I can't remember, and played around. As I played, I suddenly heard a voice from the distance. A clown was on the other side of a gate and motioning for me to get closer. Behind him was a white van, which I had noticed before but just thought it was a delivery truck of sorts. I slowly started walking towards the clown and stopped a good distance away from him. He asked me in Spanish, "Hey kid, do you like clowns?" I nodded no to him and he gave me that clown frown and then said, "Well then let me see if I can change that." He opened up his car and by looking inside I saw there was only 2 boxes. Though I wasn't sure what they were filled with, and that was it. No seats, no posters, just those 2 boxes and then complete emptiness. Being a child, I still paid no mind to it and watched as he pulled out a deflated balloon. He wrapped his lips around the end and blew till the balloon was fully inflated. He tied the end and started to form the balloon into a balloon animal of a dog. He showed it to me and I smiled. He then motioned me to come closer, to which I complied. He handed the balloon to me and said, "Do you like?" I nodded yes this time and gave him a little smile. He then grinned in the creepiest way possible. The grin was so creepy that even as a kid I knew to back away a bit. The clown then said that if I wanted to see the rest of his tricks I would have to get into the truck. I told him that the exit was on the other side of the park and I wouldn't be able to climb the small gate. He then said the few words that haunt me to this day. "Get a little closer and I'll carry you over. Then we can have loads of fun in my truck. Come on, kid." While saying this, he still had that creepy grin plastered across his face. I merely backed away and told him, "No, it's okay, sir." His grin turned into anger as though he was annoyed at this. He placed his hands on his hips and said to me, "Aw, but we're going to have so much fun." Right when he said that, I heard a voice on the other side of the park yelling, "Son, son, I'm here to pick you up." I turned and saw a man that I recognized as a local neighbor. He was not my real father, obviously, but the little me knew to run over to him. I said nothing to the clown. I just ran to man and gave him a hug. The man waved to the clown and said, "Thanks for keeping my kid entertained," to which the clown replied, "No problem." As we turned around I was able to hear this man murmur, "Sick fuck." I looked at him and asked, "Sir, what exactly is going on?" He gave a sigh and explained everything. As it turns out, that was no real clown. He was a man that had been kidnapping kids across all of Ecuador. He would lure kids with the clown costume and take them away to God knows what place. The people of my town had a feeling he was coming to our town, which was why the whole park was deserted. He said that he was walking by when he noticed that I was talking to the clown and ran over to basically save me. As he told me this, he also dialed for the police to report the incident. We had finally arrived at my house and this man said, "Be careful with who you talk to, son. Not everyone is who they seem." I gave him one final hug and gave him a thanks for saving me from that sick fuck. He gave me a rub on the head and said, "It's okay, my boy, now hurry on in, I have my own things to worry about." I nodded and ran in the house. Nobody was there, and by the time they had returned I had decided not to tell anyone since I knew they'd flip the fuck out. It took a while to forget about the whole incident, especially with those words that kept reminding me of him, but I soon forgot till I came across this page and memories of that clown flooded my head. I'm not quite sure what happened to the sicko, but hopefully he is now behind bars, hopefully. So to that creepy clown from long ago.
Sacks are treated with reflective material when they're made. And it's a good idea to write your name, address, and phone number on the sack, just in case there is an accident.
Jesse James Meets Frankenstein's Daughter is a low-budget Western horror hybrid film released in 1966, in which a fictionalized version of the real-life Western outlaw Jesse James encounters the fictional granddaughter, the movie's title notwithstanding, of the famous Dr. Frankenstein. In June of 1965, William Bodine agreed to direct the last 2 films of his career, Billy the Kid vs. Dracula and Jesse James Meets Frankenstein's Daughter. According to biographer Wendy L. Marshall and William Bodine from silence to television. It was loyalty that persuaded him to direct 2 burlesque horror westerns for Joe Levine's Circle Productions. Each one was filmed in 8 days at the Corrigan Ranch in Simi Valley and at Paramount Studios. Carol Case was the producer and Sam Manners the production supervisor. Bodine had directed television shows for both Billy the Kid vs. Dracula and Jesse James Meets Frankenstein's Daughter were produced specifically for the drive-in circuit. They were made for fun, said Manners. Carol Case felt Bill would do the best job on them, and I'm sure Levine and Case felt they could make money with them. That was part and parcel, and is always part and parcel, of whichever's being done. Levine expected to clear more than $5 million on each film. Bodine liked to work with actors he had previously directed in other films or television shows and assembled a supporting cast for Jesse James Meets Frankenstein's Daughter that include Jim Davis as Marshall McPhee. Davis had worked with Bodine on the TV series Rescue 8. Stephen Garay as Dr. Frankenstein. Garay had appeared in Bodine's Paris Playboys 1954, and Nestor Pava as the saloon owner. Pava had been featured in Bodine's TV series The Adventures of Rin Tin Tin. Cal Boulder, who plays Jesse James's sidekick Hank Tracy and the monster Igor in the film, recalls in an interview with Michael Barnum how he was cast in Jesse James Meets Frankenstein's Daughter. The producer of the film saw me in a television role. I was working pretty steady in TV at that point. He wanted me to come in and read for the part, which I did. It only took about a week to shoot the movie when you were where I was and wanted to work and get exposure. Then you took just about anything that came along. In fact, Jim Davis, who played the sheriff in the film, had been around Hollywood for about 20 years, and I managed to get billing above him, and nobody had ever heard of me, including Jim Davis. As for his transition from Hank Tracy to Igor in Jesse James Meets Frankenstein's Daughter, Boulder said, "They really shaved my head. They said to me, 'We'd like for you to shave your head, and for that we will give you an extra $1,000. And we will give you a professionally made wig for you to wear to go out on auditions with.' So I did half the film bald, except for that rubber tape around my head, which was made to look like stitching. As it was, I got several more roles later in shows where they wanted me to be bald, such as a couple of the Man from U.N.C.L.E. episodes and a Daniel Boone. So it actually worked out well for me." Estelita Rodriguez, who billed herself as Estelita for most of her career, hadn't made a feature film since Rio Bravo in 1959 when she accepted this role. It would be her last film. She died of influenza shortly after it was completed. The film was originally released as part of a double feature along with Billy the Kid vs. Dracula in 1966. Both films were shot in 8 days at Corriganville Movie Ranch and at Paramount Studios in mid-1965. Both were the final feature films of director William Bodine. The films were produced by television producer Carol Case for Joseph E. Levine.
Bomba the bomba 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 the bomba the bomba dang 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 the ding dong ding blue moon blue moon blue moon dip 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 blue blue moon dip 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 blue moon. Don't worry about coming in today. I'm just gonna be filing the paperwork for the massacre on Savage Street. Fuck.
Look, what you need to know is, I think this building is haunted or something, there's some demon. You need to get you and your family out now.
It's intermission. Rise and stretch time. Time to refresh yourself and visit our snack bar. Got a yen for hot popcorn?
On this episode of Mystery or Myth, we will be looking into a legend known as the Vanishing Hitchhiker, or variations such as the Ghostly Hitchhiker, Disappearing Hitchhiker. Phantom Hitchhiker is an urban legend in which people traveling by vehicle meet with or are accompanied by a hitchhiker who subsequently vanishes without explanation, often from a moving vehicle. Public knowledge of the story expanded greatly with the 1981 publication of Jan Harold Brunvan's book The Vanishing Hitchhiker. In his book, Brunvan suggests that the story of the Vanishing Hitchhiker can be traced as far back as the 1870s and has recognizable parallels in Korea, Tsarist Russia, among Chinese Americans, Mormons, and Ozark mountaineers. Similar stories have been reported for centuries across the world. A common variation of the above involves the vanishing hitchhiker departing as would a normal passenger, having left some item in the car, or having borrowed a garment for protection against alleged cold. The vanishing hitchhiker can also leave some form of information that encourages the motorist to make subsequent contact. In such tellings, the garment borrowed is often subsequently found draped over a gravestone in a local cemetery. In this and in the instance of imparted information, the unsuspecting motorist subsequently makes contact with the family of a deceased person and finds that their passenger fits the description of a family member killed in some unexpected way, usually a car accident, and that the driver's encounter with the vanishing hitchhiker occurred on the anniversary of their death. Other variations reverse the scenario, in that the hitchhiker meets a driver. The hitchhiker later learns that the driver is actually an apparition of a person who died earlier. Not all vanishing hitchhiker reports involve allegedly recurring ghosts. One popular variant in Hawaii involves the goddess Pele, traveling the roads incognito and rewarding kind travelers. Other variants include hitchhikers who utter prophecies, typically of pending catastrophe or other evils, before vanishing. There is a similar story, which is about two travelers sitting next to each other on a train, normally a man and a woman. One of them is reading a book and the other person asks what the book is about. The first person says that it is about ghosts and they have a conversation about ghosts. Then the second person asks if the first person believes in ghosts or has ever seen one. The first person says that in all of their life they had never believed in or seen a ghost. The second person then says that that is doubtful, and with that, the second person vanishes. Ernest W. Bauman's Type and Motif Index of the Folktales of England and North America, 1966, delineates the basic vanishing hitchhiker as follows. Ghost of young woman asks for ride in automobile. Disappears from closed car without the driver's knowledge after giving him an address to which she wishes to be taken. The driver asks person at the address about the rider. Finds she has been dead for some time. Often the driver finds that the ghost has made similar attempts to return, usually on the anniversary of death in automobile accident. Often, too, the ghost leaves some items such as a scarf or traveling bag in the car. So, is the vanishing hitchhiker a mystery or a myth?
So in the past year, 6 women have gone missing, 4 have turned up dead. Local authorities have requested now federal assistance to find the person or the persons involved. Local authorities cases, but they're not connecting that individual to the other cases, leaving people in that area with a lot of questions. Joining me.
Hiding in Max's room. Listen to me, I think there's someone inside the house. Stop watching those scary movies. Goddamn Carrie, listen to me. Lock the damn doors. Call the police. Now! Oh my god, are you serious?
No!
Authorities are not ruling out anything at this point. They have not said it is a serial killer.
Alright, I'll save this one for later.
Pantry?
Oh yeah, and you know what? That's exactly where they're gonna find you when I blow your fucking brains out!
You stupid fucking bitch. What kind of stupid motherfucker do you think I am to have a bullet in that gun?
Goddamn.
On this episode of Mystery or Myth, we will be looking into the legend known as the Bunny Man. The Bunny Man is an urban legend that originated from two incidents in Fairfax County, Virginia, in 1970, but has been spread throughout the Washington, D.C. area. The legend has many variations. Most involve a man wearing a rabbit costume who attacks people with an axe or hatchet. Most of the stories occur around Colchester Overpass, a southern railway overpass spanning Colchester Road near Clifton, Virginia, sometimes referred to as Bunny Man Bridge. Versions of the legend vary in the Bunny Man's name, motives, weapons, victims, description of the bunny costume or lack thereof, and sometimes even possible death. In some accounts, the Bunny Man's ghost, or aging specter, is said to come out of his place of death each year on Halloween to commemorate his passing. In some accounts, victims' bodies are mutilated. Fairfax County Public Library historian archivist Brian A. Conley extensively researched the Bunny Man legend. He has located two incidents of a man in a rabbit costume threatening people with an axe. The vandalism reports occurred a week apart in 1970 in Burke, Virginia. The first incident was reported the evening of October 19, 1970 by U.S. Air Force Academy cadet Robert Bennett and his fiancée, who were visiting relatives on Guinea Road in Burke. Around midnight, while returning from a football game, they reportedly parked their car in a field on Guinea Road to visit an uncle who lived across the street from where the car was parked. As they sat in the front seat with the motor running, they noticed something moving outside the rear window. Moments later, the front passenger window was smashed, and there was a white-clad figure standing near the broken window. Bennett turned the car around while the man screamed at them about trespassing, including, "You're on private property and I have your tag number," as they drove down the road. The couple discovered a hatchet on the car floor. When the police requested a description of the man, Bennett insisted he was wearing a white suit with long bunny ears. However, Bennett's fiancée contested their assailant did not have bunny ears on his head, but was wearing a white capirote of some sort. They both remembered seeing his face clearly, but in the darkness, they could not determine his race. The police returned the hatchet to Bennett after examination. Bennett was required to report the incident upon his return to the Air Force Academy. The second reported sighting occurred on the evening of October 29, 1970, when construction security guard Paul Phillips approached a man standing on the porch of an unfinished home in Kings Park West on Guinea Road. Phillips said the man was wearing a gray, black, and white bunny costume, and was about 20 years old, 5 feet 8 inches, 1.73 meters tall, and weighed about 175 pounds, 79 kilograms. The man began chopping at a porch post with a long-handled axe, saying, "All you people trespass around here. If you don't get out of here, I'm going to bust you on the head." The Fairfax County Police opened investigations into both incidents, but both were eventually closed for lack of evidence. In the weeks following the incidents, more than 50 people contacted the police claiming to have seen the Bunny Man. Several newspapers reported the incident of the Bunny Man eating a man's runaway cat, including the following articles in the Washington Post. The legend has circulated for years in several forms. A version naming a suspect and specific location was posted to a website in the late 1990s by Timothy C. Forbes. This version states that in 1904, an asylum prison in Clifton, Virginia was shut down by successful petition of the growing population of residents in Fairfax County. During the transfer of inmates to a new facility, one of the 15 transports crashed. Most, including the driver, were killed. 10 escaped. A search party found all but one of them. During this time, locals allegedly began to find hundreds of cleanly skinned, half-eaten carcasses of rabbits hanging from the trees in the surrounding areas. Another search of the area was ordered, and the police located the remains of Marcus Walster, left in a similar fashion to the rabbit carcasses hanging in a nearby tree or under a bridge overpass, also known as the Bunny Man Bridge, along the railroad tracks at Colchester Road. Officials name the last missing inmate Douglas J. Griffin as their suspect and call him the Bunny Man. In this version, officials finally manage to locate Griffin, but during their attempt to apprehend him at the overpass, he nearly escapes before being hit by an oncoming train where the original transport crashed. They say after the train passed, the police heard laughter coming from the site. It is eventually revealed that Griffin was institutionalized for killing his family and children on Easter Sunday. For years after the Bunny Man's death, in the time approaching Halloween, carcasses are said to be found hanging from the overpass and surrounding areas. A figure is reportedly seen by passers-by making their way through the one-lane bridge tunnel. Conley says this version is demonstrably false. Among other inconsistencies, Conley notes there has never been an asylum for the insane in Fairfax County, that Lorton Prison didn't come into existence until 1910. And even then it was an arm of the District of Columbia Corrections System, not Virginia's. Moreover, court records show neither a Griffin nor a Walster. Cryptozoologist Loren Coleman, via his blog Cryptomundo and book Weird Virginia, in a section on the Bunny Man, wrote about a direct association between the legend of Bunny Man and that of the Goat Man of nearby Maryland. The 2011 slasher film Bunny Man is an exploitation-style version of the story. So, do you believe the Bunny Man is a mystery or a myth?
Residents are on edge. They're worried that a serial killer might be on the loose. So in the past year, 6 women, they've gone missing, 4 have turned up dead, and local authorities have requested now federal assistance to find the person or the persons involved.
Damn it, what is this, fucking paint or something? What is this?
Nothing much, man. I'm just here at my friend's house, watching his dog and, you know, watch the whole house for him while he's away.
Local law enforcement says that they've identified a suspect in one of these cases, but they've not connected that individual to the other cases, leaving people in that area with a lot of questions.
Create art. Abolish injustice. A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
What's going on?
Terrible thing to waste.
One more time, Aaron, please stop. Are you gonna do it?
They may never get the chance. A mind is a terrible thing to
Hello, boys and girls.
Oh my god, I feel like we've been going around in a circle for the past hour. The cabin's like less than a mile away. Don't you tell me to shut up, you little piece of shit. Oh my god, Maria, would you shut the fuck up? You've been running your mouth for like 5 minutes. Well, I guess I'll just keep my comments to myself. You've been complaining for like the past hour. Don't you get tired? Please. I was just only trying to help. You've helped enough. Felix, did you hear that? No shit, bitch. I'm not deaf. Would you just shut up? You see, I told you it's all okay. Oh my god! What the?
Hello, boys and girls.
Hey everybody, how's it going? My name's Jonathan, and right now I'm gonna go to the burial ground where the Tiny Terror legend took place.
Tiny Terrors?
Hey guys, how's it going? So right now we're here at the burial grounds. This is where Tiny Terrors took place. This is where the house burned down.
Tiny Terrors. Tiny Terrors. Tiny Terrors. Jonathan, what's with the fucking dolls and the fucking blood and all this shit? Like...
Reverse the piece of shit now! Move it!
If you've been following the news lately, then maybe you've heard about the clown sightings throughout the Carolinas. At first, people thought it was just one person playing a prank and nobody really took it seriously. Then they started happening again and again, and in different areas. Suddenly, sightings turned into creepy clowns jumping out of bushes and chasing children around bus stops. Eventually, the police departments in the South issued a statement that what was going on wasn't funny. Their words, not mine, and even Stephen King, who I think wrote the quintessential story featuring a killer clown, was quoted by the press as saying he found it frightening. I myself have never really been scared of clowns. I enjoyed the movie version of Stephen King's It, and movies like Killer Clowns from Outer Space are regular Halloween viewing for me. So when I read these stories about creepy clowns being seen throughout the Carolinas, I took it as almost everyone else did, just one big mass prank that people were overreacting to. There was no chance of danger in this regard. Hell, it might have even been some kind of viral marketing campaign for the remake of Stephen King's It. In fact, I never really gave it any thought at all until I read a story about the same clown sightings happening in my hometown of Macon, Georgia. Funny how that happens, isn't it? We don't really concern ourselves with anything of this sort until it gets too close to home. But even after reading the story about the Macon sightings, I didn't think much on it. Just copycat pranks, I figured. Just people wanting a little thrill as the fall set in and as Halloween grew closer. What I wouldn't give to return to that blissful ignorance. I moved back to Macon a few months ago. I'd lived in Atlanta for about a year, but it didn't work out. Classic story. College dropout moves to big city to build a life for himself and then realizes that real life requires skills that college could never teach, so he moves back in with his parents. I insisted on paying my mom rent, and we agreed on a minimal amount. I was able to pay it by working odd jobs like mowing lawns, fixing sinks, and babysitting. It wasn't until I started babysitting that I realized how weird the concept of a male babysitter is to some people. A female babysitter is apparently always pleasant, responsible and nice, while all male babysitters are evil. My friends would always rib me, saying I was just desperate for cash and insisting I was spending it all on tampons. Why the hell would a guy babysit? The truth is I just love kids. Some people who know me say I'm just a big kid myself, so I've always had a natural rapport with children. Penelope was no different. Her parents were highly esteemed members of Macon's upper pecking order. Yes, they have one, and a lot of their time was dedicated to meetings, socials, events, etc. So they became my most frequent babysitting job, and I have to say I really enjoyed it. I know the stereotype is that the child of the rich parents is spoiled and unpleasant. But Penelope wasn't that way at all. I mean, she had the typical childlike self-centeredness, but she was very sweet and a lot of fun, and I always looked forward to babysitting her. I called her Penny. What does this have to do with the clown sightings, you might ask? Well, Penny was into a lot of the typical little girl stuff. My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, singing Disney songs, Barbie, all of that, but the thing she loved the most was nature walks. There were a lot of forests and nature trails near where she lived. So I guess she just developed a natural fascination for it. With her parents' permission, I started taking her on trips through the forest and along the trails and such. And you would swear I'd taken her to Disney World, the way she reacted. It was adorable, seeing her cradle the flowers that she would pick and talking to trees like they were alive. Then, one day, we were walking along the Hitchiti Trail, which is a 4-mile woodland trail near the Ocmulgee River. Normally, it's very beautiful, but on this particular overcast, dreary day, it seemed a bit more foreboding, I guess. Not that it mattered to Penny. She was just happy to be walking through the forest and enjoying the fresh air. We were about 2 miles through. I started to point out that the trees were remarkably green for the time of year when I noticed Penny wasn't walking next to me anymore. For a split second, I felt scared that I'd lost her, But then I turned around and saw her standing a few yards back, giggling at something I couldn't see. Sighing in relief, I sprinted over to her. "Penny, what are you looking at?" As I said, I'm not usually one to be creeped out by clowns, but seeing a clown out in the middle of the woods for no explicable reason will give anyone the shivers, and I was immediately taken aback. I giggled nervously and insisted to Penny that we keep moving. Being the good kid that she was, she said okay, and we started making our way back to where we had come from. At first, she was slightly upset that we weren't going to walk the rest of the trail, but there was no way I was going to go deeper into that forest with that clown there. We got back to the car and I took her home. Her parents were exceptionally tired when they got back home, so they paid me and all but shooed me out of the house. Penny may have been sweet, but her parents were rather snobbish. I said goodbye and left. When I got back home, my mom was already in bed, so I showered, brushed my teeth, and crawled into bed. I'm a little embarrassed to admit that I had trouble sleeping that night. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was that clown, standing there as still as a corpse in the middle of the trees. The next time I had to babysit Penny, she asked if we could go back to that same trail. I told her I wasn't sure and asked if she'd rather go somewhere else this time. But she was insistent on the hitch-a-tee. I was skeptical, but I relented. After all, what were the chances that that clown would be there this time? We got around to the point where we'd seen him the first time, and I was relieved to see nothing was there. She asked if we could walk further this time, and I said okay. We were about another mile down the trail when I thought I heard another set of footsteps slightly behind us. I was already a little nervous, so I stopped dead and turned around. There was nobody there. Did you hear that, Penny? Hear what? Maybe I just wanted a short respite from my nervousness, but I accepted her not hearing anything and we kept going. After another half a mile, I began to hear the footsteps again. This time, Penny heard them too. "Is that what you heard?" she asked. "You heard it too?" I asked. She must have sensed the fear in my voice because she started to get scared too, and she came closer to me. I hugged her close and whispered, "Maybe we should head back to the car." She nodded in agreement and we started heading back in the other direction. After another few yards, we both heard the footsteps again, and this time we both realized that they were speeding up. We both began to sprint through the forest, and this time the footsteps didn't fade away. They only got faster and faster. I realized we were running past the same spot where we'd first seen that clown. Out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw him standing in that exact same spot. I instinctively started running faster, as did Penny. Penny began to fall behind, and I grabbed her hand to make sure she could keep up. "Just keep running, Penny. We are almost there." Suddenly, Penny began screaming. I felt her grip rip away from my hand, and I turned back. The clown had her in his arms, one of his hands over her mouth, stifling her screams. He looked me in the eyes and began running into the forest. "Penny," I screamed. I ran after the clown as he disappeared among the trees. Pretty soon, I realized that I couldn't see him. He had completely disappeared, and so had Penny. "Penny," I screamed again, hoping to God that maybe, just maybe, I'd hear her scream my name back. But there was nothing, not a sound. I pulled my phone out and saw that it was 7:47 p.m. We'd been out a lot longer than I'd hoped, and the sun was starting to set. I started to dial 911, but there was no signal. Looking back, I should have known there wouldn't be a signal out in a thick wood. A crippling fear set in as I realized that I was now out in the woods with no way of contacting anyone about what had just happened. My poor little Penny, I started to pair, but another idea popped into my head. I drew an X in the dirt where I'd been standing to mark where Penny had disappeared, and then I ran back to my car and checked my phone again. This time there was a signal. I started to call 911. On the second ring, the power off notification came up and my phone died. No. Please. fuck? I started to cry out of both fear and frustration and tried to think of anything else I could do. Another idea. It was a long shot, but I had to try. I opened the passenger side door of my car and then popped open the glove compartment. I kept a snub-nosed revolver in there along with a small box of ammo, just in case. Thank God for open carry laws, right? I opened the box of ammo as quickly as I could and loaded the gun. My hands were shaking so badly I was worried the gun would go off. But thankfully that didn't happen. I took a deep breath and then I ran back into the woods, looking along the trail for the X I had drawn. I finally found it and looked forward into the dense wood in front of me. Gripping my gun tightly and taking a deep breath, I started walking into the woods, resolving not come out again until I'd found Penny. I walked for quite some time. The sun was going down and I hadn't come close to finding Penny at all. Penny, I called out. Nothing. Not a sound. I walked on. Before long, night had fallen and that crippling fear set in again as I realized I was lost. I'd never been in this part of the forest before. We'd always insisted on sticking to the trail. I took another deep breath and pressed on. The wood was even scarier at night than it had been on that overcast day. I felt my grip on my gun get tighter and I realized my hands were shaking again. And that's when I started to hear the footsteps. This time, they weren't sprinting or running. They were slowly coming up behind me, only a few feet away. I was frozen in place, but on the off chance that those footsteps were Penny, I knew I had to. I turned around and took aim with my gun. Penny wasn't standing there. The clown wasn't there. Nothing was. Confused, I turned back around. There stood the clown. I took a step back instinctively. My terror almost had me running again, but I stood my ground. I looked up at the clown's face. His eyes were dark in the night. "Where is she?" I said, and aimed my gun square at the clown's torso. He said nothing. "Where the fuck is she?" I yelled. I could hear my own voice echo throughout the woods. This time, the clown smiled. My eyes opened wide as I saw that his teeth were much longer and much sharper than any human's teeth would be. "She's going to die screaming." His voice was a horrible mix between a whisper and a growl. I could have sworn to God I heard several voices in his one whisper. But I was so scared I didn't notice at the time. A small whimper escaped my throat and I felt a tear drop down my face. What were they doing to her? Torturing her? Raping her? I didn't want to think of it. Give her back. This time I couldn't even sound brave. The fear in my voice was too strong. The clown started to laugh. It was a terrible, mirthful laugh as he seemed to reflect on all the terrible things they were going to do or already had done to Penny. I felt my fear give way to pure rage and I squeezed the trigger of my gun. The gunshot echoed throughout the forest. The bullet hit the clown square in the chest. Blood started to pour down his chest and his laughter stopped. Suddenly, he was completely silent again. I took another step back. Any normal person would have fallen from a gunshot like that. The clown hadn't even moved. He just stood there, bleeding and looking at me. I fired again, and again, and again. I started to feel blood splatter on my shirt. Each time, the bullets tore a new hole and each time the blood began to pour out of him, but still the clown didn't move. Before long, I realized I'd fired all but one shot. This time, I aimed square at his head and fired. The bullet tore its way through the clown's eye. I saw blood splatter all over the trees behind him as the back of his head exploded. He still didn't go down. That horrible smile of his just grew wider. His sharp teeth were gleaming in the moonlight. Then he suddenly broke into a hard run towards me. I dropped my gun and started to run harder than I ever had in my entire life. Screaming the entire way, I heard the clown running faster and faster behind me, and a couple of times I felt his fingers almost grip the back of my shirt. I took a hard right and began running as fast as I could in that direction. I didn't even care where I was going as long as I didn't get caught by that clown. I half expected for him to appear in front of me at some point, but he never did. Pretty soon, all I could hear was my own panting and screaming and the clown running behind me. Finally, I saw something ahead of me. It was a light, a headlight. I was running towards the highway. I tried running faster. I felt like my lungs were about to explode. For some reason, I felt like getting out of the forest would save me from the clown. Suddenly, that line from the legend of Sleepy Hollow hit me. Once you cross that bridge, my friend, the ghost is through. His power ends. Finally, I got to the edge of the forest and I ran out onto the highway. It was still dark, but I saw up ahead that a truck was making its way towards me. I just stood there, right in the middle of the right lane, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The driver thankfully saw me and slowed down. I could tell he was angry at first, but then he saw how frightened I was. He noticed the blood on my shirt and asked if I was okay. I didn't answer. I could barely hear him over the pounding in my ears. The entire world seemed silent. I slowly turned around, half expecting that goddamned clown to come up and grab me. But he wasn't there. There was nothing but trees and darkness. I turned around and faced the truck driver. He was still asking if I could hear him and if I was okay. I felt my knees buckle and everything went black. I woke up in the hospital. My mom was sitting in the chair next to me and the police were standing outside my room with Penny's parents. Her mother was crying and being comforted by her husband. I happened to catch the husband's gaze as he looked over at me. There was a mix between grief and absolute hatred in his eyes. The police saw that I was conscious again and started asking me questions. Apparently, the truck driver had called the police and they'd searched the woods. They found my gun lying among the trees. It still had a little blood on it. That, coupled with my bloody shirt, had them thinking that I had done something terrible to Penny. I started crying at the mention of her name and I insisted that I would never do anything like that to her. The parents weren't convinced until the forensics on the blood came back. It certainly wasn't Penny's blood. They never could find a DNA match. Penny's parents threatened to sue me for negligence, but ultimately didn't follow through. I guess the grief of losing their little girl was too much. They didn't want to add to the pain. It's been a little over a month since Penny's disappearance and my encounter with that thing out in the woods. I still think about her all the time. Sometimes I even dream about her. I dream that we're still running through the forest together, being chased by that clown, but this time I'm able to hold onto her hand and pull her to safety. And then I wake up and I realize that this isn't some nightmare. This is real. That poor little girl is gone and it's my fault. God, I loved her so much. If any smidgen of good can come from this, at least I can come on here and share my story. Maybe some of your kids' lives can be saved by knowing what I've gone through. I don't know what happened to Penny. I don't know what happened to that clown. I don't know what that clown was. I don't know how he survived those gunshots. I don't know what he wanted Penny for. I don't know what he wanted me for. All I know is this: those things are out there. They're dangerous, and they're not human.
This isn't funny. Is anyone here? Hello? If it's one of you guys playing a prank on me, this isn't funny. Who's hiding down here? Hello? 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 Who's in here? Hello? Hello?
Frankenstein's Daughter is a 1958 independently made American science fiction horror film drama produced by Mark Frederick and George Fowley, directed by Richard E. Cunha, that stars John Ashley, Sandra Knight, Donald Murphy, and Sally Todd. The film was distributed by Astor Pictures and was released theatrically in late 1958 as a double feature with Missile to the Moon. The film, set in mid-20th century America, tells the story of the creation of the first female Frankenstein's monster. Layton Films was a company established by Dick Cunha, a filmmaker who had just left Screencraft Productions, and Mark Frederick, an investor. In April 1958 it was announced Layton would make 10 films in just over 24 months for distribution by Astor Films. Starting with Frankenstein's Daughter, in the end only 2 other films were made, Missile to the Moon and The Girl in Room 13. Frankenstein's Daughter was shot during just 6 days for approximately $65,000 and sold to Astor Pictures for $80,000. It was filmed at Screencraft Studios in Hollywood. Although the house in which much of the action takes place was the home of producer Mark Frederick. Production of the film wrapped in May 1958. John Ashley had just made a number of films for American International Pictures. He later recalled AIP was low budget, 100 grand a movie, but at least they shot on sound stages and the size of the crew was bigger. Frankenstein's Daughter was really rock bottom. But the people were very nice, especially Doug Cunha, the director, but it was quick, a little more down and dirty than AIP. Ashley later said he remembered 2 things about the film. The monster, which was a man because the makeup artist didn't know it was supposed to be a woman, and that we shot the ending at Harold Lloyd's estate because Harold Lloyd Jr. played a teenager in it. Although the credits use the words "and introducing" in reference to Harold Lloyd Jr., his first film role was actually 1953's The Flaming Urge. Sally Todd was Miss February 1957 in Playboy magazine. Paul Stanhope and Harry Thomas did the makeup for Frankenstein's Daughter. The film's specific U.S. release date is somewhat confusing. The American Film Institute, AFI, simply states that it was released in November 1958, while several websites gives a more precise date of the 15th of November 1958 for its New York City premiere. However, Warren writes that the release date was December 15, 1958, March 4, 1960 in Los Angeles. Frankenstein's Daughter was released theatrically in Canada and West Germany in 1959, Mexico in 1960, and France in 1962, as well as on unspecified dates in Austria, Belgium, Brazil, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Italy, Spain, and the UK. The film was distributed theatrically in Canada by Astral Films, by Sunder Films Wicker in West Germany, and by Benelux Films in Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. At some point, it played in the UK as the first feature on a double bill with the giant Gila monster. Frankenstein's Daughter was given an X certificate by the British Board of Film Censors (BBFC), restricting its viewing to adults age 16 and over, while the giant Gila monster got an A certificate, which meant that the film was considered more suitable for adults than children.
crazy fucking bitch.
Thank you. I'll be back. I'll go get some gasoline.
Help! Someone help me!
Bitch.
Hello, boys and girls.
I'm going to the store. I'll be right back soon.
But Mom said you're supposed to watch me.
Mom. Mom asked me to wipe your ass. What, you want to bend down or something, dude?
No.
Okay then. I'll be back in 20 minutes.
Fucking jerk.
Could anything else go wrong? I spoke too soon.
Hello?
Hello.
Who is it?
Hi. My name is Bob.
Bob? I don't know a Bob.
Oh. But I know you, Adam.
You do?
Yes, I do. So why don't you open the door so we can have a little chat?
I'm not supposed to bring strangers in the house. My parents said so.
Oh, but Adam, I'm already inside the house.
What? What do you mean?
I'm here. I'm right behind you.
Huh?
Adam, I got your Twizzler. Adam?
Hello, boys and girls.